I didn't want to talk about this, not because it sounds unbelievable, but because once I say it out loud, I can't pretend it didn't happen. And I've spent a long time pretending. I thought the warning was the end. I thought once you're warned, you either listen or you don't. I didn't know there was something after that. Something quieter, something heavier, something that doesn't chase you with fear, but follows you with silence. My name is Michael. For most of my adult life, I was a first responder. I'm not telling you that to sound brave. I'm telling you because it explains why I didn't panic when I died. I'd seen death too many times to be impressed by it. I'd walked into apartments where the TV was still on, and the person on the couch was already gone. I'd heard the kind of crying that doesn't sound human, and then watched the same people, a week later, standing in a grocery store like nothing happened. After a while, death stops feeling dramatic. It becomes paperwork, reports, signatures, timestamps, and somewhere in the middle of that, I stopped feeling things the way I used to. I wasn't cruel, I wasn't heartless, I was just trained to stay calm, trained to move fast, trained to keep my hands steady while someone else's world collapsed. People would say, "How do you do that job?" And I'd smile, and I'd give them the same answer every time. You get used to it. But that's the kind of sentence that should scare you, because getting used to tragedy doesn't mean you've become strong. Sometimes it means you've become numb. And numb feels like control until it doesn't. That day started like any other day. No thunder, no bad feeling in my stomach, no voice in my head telling me, "Not today." Just another shift, another call. I remember thinking about normal things, what I'd eat after work, whether I'd have time to stop for coffee, whether my back would finally stop aching. Ordinary thoughts. Then the call came in, and it sounded routine. Nothing in the dispatch voice suggested fate. Nothing in the description hinted at the edge of eternity. Just another moment where someone needed help. And we responded. We pulled up and everything looked normal. That's the strangest part. People always imagine near-death moments like a movie. Sirens, screams, chaos. Mine wasn't like that. It was quiet. A streetlight humming. The low hush of wind. My own breathing inside my chest. I stepped out. I remember the way the air felt, cold enough to wake you up. I remember the weight of my gear. And I remember one small thought, stupid and human. I'm going to be sore tomorrow. I took a few steps forward. Then something happened that I still don't have perfect words for. It wasn't pain. It wasn't fear. It was like the world turned its face away, like someone lowered the volume on reality. My hearing didn't go first. My vision didn't blur first. My certainty went first. The certainty that I was here. The certainty that I was alive. The certainty that my body was me. It all slipped. Not violently. Quietly. Like a ring sliding off your finger. I remember thinking, what is this? And then I was gone. Not asleep. Not unconscious. Gone. But somehow, I was more awake than I'd ever been. There was no tunnel right away. No bright light right away. There was just awareness. And the first thing I noticed was how calm I felt. That should sound impossible. But it was true. If you've ever been in shock, you know how your emotions shut off and your body just watches. It was like that, except deeper. I knew something important had happened. I knew I'd crossed a line. But I wasn't panicking. It felt like I had stopped holding my breath after years of not realizing I was holding it. And then I realized something that made my mind go still. I could see my body, not like looking down from a ceiling in some dramatic way, more like I was aware of it from a distance. It was mine. But it wasn't me. That's the moment I should have screamed. I didn't. I felt detached, not cold, not cruel, just detached, like the world had let go of me, and I had let go of the world. Time didn't feel like time. There wasn't a ticking clock. There wasn't a before and after. There was only a now. And in that now, I noticed how much noise life has. Not sound noise, mental noise, worry, pressure, the constant need to explain yourself to yourself. All of that was gone, and without it, I felt light. Not happy, not excited, just light. I didn't feel my back pain. I didn't feel fatigue. I didn't feel hungry. I didn't even feel the need to control anything. I was simply present. Then the darkness around me began to change. Not like a room lighting up, more like a fog thinning. And as it thinned, there was a sense of movement. Not my body moving, my awareness moving. If you've ever been on a boat in calm water, and you can't tell if the boat is moving, or if the world is moving around it, it was like that. I felt drawn forward, not forced, invited. And with that invitation came something else, a feeling that I was not alone. At first, that terrified the part of me that still thought like a human. But the fear didn't have room to grow, because the presence I felt wasn't predatory. It wasn't curious. It was steady, like standing near a mountain. The mountain doesn't need to prove anything. It just is. As I moved, the fog grew softer, warmer, and far ahead, there was light. But not a spotlight, not a sun. A light that felt alive. A light that seemed to know me. And I know how that sounds. But listen. In life, you can be surrounded by people and still feel unknown. In that light, I felt completely known. Not my job title. Not my mistakes in public. The hidden things. The things I never said out loud. The thoughts I excused. The moments I justified. It wasn't shameful. It was honest. And honesty felt like relief. The closer I got, the more everything in me went quiet. Not empty. Quiet. Like the kind of quiet you feel when you finally stop lying to yourself. I reached the light, or maybe the light reached me. There wasn't a doorway. There wasn't a threshold. There was simply a moment where I realized I was in it. And inside that light, there was stillness. Not boredom, not nothingness. Stillness like deep water. And in that stillness, I felt something I'd never felt on earth. Safety. Not, I hope nothing bad happens. Safety. Real safety. The kind where your nervous system finally stops scanning for danger. I didn't feel judged. I didn't feel interrogated. I felt received. And then I became aware of someone. Not a shape, not a face, a presence. The presence didn't rush me. It didn't overwhelm me. It didn't perform. It didn't try to convince me. It was just true. And next to something that true, you don't argue. You don't negotiate. You don't posture. You just are. I felt like every excuse I'd ever made was suddenly too small to hold. I saw my life. Not like a movie, but like understanding. Like knowledge placed into me. Moments where I could have been kind and wasn't. Moments where I could have been honest and wasn't. Not dramatic sins, small choices, small betrayals of my own conscience. And the most painful realization wasn't, I did bad things. It was this. I became someone who stopped caring. I let my heart get hard and I called it professionalism. I let myself become numb and I called it strength. And the presence didn't accuse me. The presence made me see myself clearly. And clarity was mercy. Then I understood something else. This presence was Jesus. He didn't need to say his name. There was no label floating in the air. I knew. The way you know fire is hot without anyone explaining it. And when I knew, I expected condemnation. I expected anger. I expected a courtroom. Instead, I felt love. Not sentimental love. Not everything you do is fine love. A love that is strong enough to tell you the truth. He didn't speak the way humans speak. There wasn't a mouth moving. There wasn't sound bouncing off walls. The meaning arrived all at once. Clear. You saw the warning, he said. And the way he said it, it wasn't about a date on a calendar. It was about a line in the soul. A moment where a person realizes life isn't endless. Time isn't guaranteed. You're not promised later. I felt him show me that the warning wasn't meant to scare people. It was meant to wake them. Then he said something that changed the temperature of everything. Now I will show you what comes after. I assumed that meant catastrophe. I assumed that meant punishment, because that's what people imagine. If God warns you, and you ignore it, then something dramatic should happen, right? I was wrong. He showed me something far more disturbing. He showed me normal. He showed me people waking up the next day, getting dressed, making coffee, turning on the TV, scrolling their phones, laughing at memes, arguing about politics, making plans for the weekend. Not because they were evil, because they were distracted, because they were comfortable, because they didn't want to feel the weight of anything real. He showed me people who had heard the warning and shrugged. They didn't deny it. They didn't fight it. They did something worse. They moved on. They treated it like another headline, another clip, another story to consume, then forget. And as I watched, I felt grief. Not anger. Grief. Because I could see what was happening inside them. Their lives looked full. But inside, they were thinning out. Not dying. Fading. Like a candle burning down without anyone noticing. And the longer they ignored the warning, the easier it became to ignore everything else. Conscience. Truth. Prayer. Repentance. It wasn't that they chose evil. It was that they chose nothing. And nothing is a slow death. Jesus showed me how the after works. Not like a punishment from the sky. Like a natural result. If you ignore the truth long enough, your ability to recognize it weakens. If you numb your heart long enough, you stop noticing you're numb. And then one day, you wake up, and you don't feel anything. And you call it peace. But it isn't peace. It's absence. He showed me relationships growing colder, not with explosions, with silence. A husband and wife in the same room, not speaking. Parents looking at their children like chores. Friends together, but no real connection. Everyone fine. Everyone busy. And underneath it all, loneliness. He showed me people who used to pray, stopping. Not because they decided God wasn't real, but because they got tired. Tired of effort. Tired of humility. Tired of admitting they needed help. He showed me people who used to believe, slowly becoming cynical. Because cynicism feels intelligent. It feels safe. If you don't hope, you can't be disappointed. If you don't believe, you can't be hurt. But cynicism is a cage. And in that cage, the soul starves. Then Jesus showed me something personal. He showed me myself if I came back and did nothing. If I returned to my old life and treated what I'd seen like a strange dream. He showed me Michael, continuing the job, continuing the numbness, continuing the jokes, continuing the excuses, and my heart slowly turning into stone. That vision scared me more than death, because it was familiar, it was easy, it was comfortable, and it was wrong. Then he gave me the simplest message I've ever received. Do not waste what you have been shown. Not a threat, a plea, a gift. He wasn't asking me to become a preacher. He was asking me to become honest, to become soft again, to choose. And then I felt myself falling back, not falling through air, falling into weight, into limitation, into time, into lungs. I remember the first breath. It wasn't gentle, it was violent, like my body had been underwater and finally broke the surface. Sound returned, harsh, bright. Someone was shouting my name. Hands were on my shoulders, lights were too white. Everything felt heavy, and for a moment I wanted to go back, not because I wanted to die, because the light felt like home. But I didn't go back. I stayed. Days passed, and I tried to pretend it hadn't happened. That lasted about 10 minutes, because you don't see what I saw and then go back to normal. I started noticing things I'd ignored. How fast people talk, so they don't have to feel. How often we laugh, so we don't have to admit we're scared. How many distractions we worship. I started noticing my own heart. How quickly I got annoyed. How easily I dismissed people. How often I chose comfort over truth. And I realized the warning wasn't out there. It was in here. Inside every moment where I had the chance to choose. Kindness or indifference. Honesty or image. Humility or pride. The warning was the line where God says, you can keep living asleep or you can wake up. I'm telling you this for one reason. Because I saw what comes after the warning. And it wasn't fire. It was fading. It was people losing themselves one comfortable decision at a time. And if you're listening to this right now, I don't believe it's an accident. Maybe you're numb. Maybe you're tired. Maybe you've been carrying something heavy and you've been pretending it isn't there. I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to tell you the truth. The warning isn't about fear. It's about choice. And the silence that follows is louder than anything you can imagine. I came back, but I didn't come back the same. And I can't unsee what I saw. So I'm choosing to wake up, even if it costs me comfort. Even if it makes people think I'm crazy. Because I'd rather be awake for a hard truth than asleep in a soft lie. That's all. That's what I was shown. That's what comes after.